For context, I need to explain something first. I'm hard of hearing. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and while I've learned how to adapt, there's always been a quiet fear in the back of my mind that one day, not hearing something important would put me in real danger. I rely heavily on visual cues, on patterns, on my dog Rex, who hears what I can't. Until this happened, I thought that was enough. This took place about a year ago, right after the holidays, when everything finally slowed down. I live alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood in northern Michigan, where the last row of houses backs up against a thick, sprawling forest. The woods stretch for miles, broken only by a few narrow trails locals use for walking dogs or snowshoeing in the winter. It's the kind of place where neighbors wave, borrow snow shovels, and keep an eye out for each other without being intrusive. I always felt safe there, especially with Rex. He's a big German Shepherd Malamute mix, protective but gentle, and he's been my constant companion for years. Winter walks were our routine. Rex needed the exercise, and I enjoyed the stillness of the forest in February, when snow muffles everything and the world feels paused. One cold afternoon, after a late lunch, I bundled up and took Rex out. Fresh snow blanketed the ground, smooth and untouched, like no one else had been there all day. Once we reached the tree line, I unclipped his leash, watching him bound ahead happily, his dark fur stark against the white ground. We walked for about half an hour before reaching a fork in the trail. One path showed the usual signs of traffic: boot prints, paw marks, packed down snow. The other was pristine. On impulse, I chose the untouched path, wanting that feeling of being alone with nature. The trail narrowed and eventually opened into a small clearing. Sunlight filtered weakly through the bare branches, and everything was so quiet it almost felt unreal. I stopped there and pulled out the binoculars I'd gotten for Christmas, scanning the distant tree line for deer. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Near the edge of the clearing, partially hidden by trees, was a flash of blue. I adjusted the binoculars and felt my stomach tighten. It was a blue tarp stretched low to the ground, weighed down with logs and rocks. Beneath it was the unmistakable shape of a makeshift shelter. Someone had been living out there. I stood frozen, suddenly very aware of how exposed I was, how far from home, how silent the woods were. I couldn't hear if anyone was nearby. After a few 10 seconds, I clipped Rex back onto his leash and turned around, deciding it was best to leave before it got dark. On the walk back, Rex's behavior changed completely. His tail was stiff, his head low, nose glued to the ground as he sniffed obsessively. He kept stopping, ears pricked forward, body tense. That alone set my nerves on edge. Then I noticed the footprints. They were large, deep impressions in the snow, not made by boots like mine, and definitely not from Rex. They ran parallel to the trail for a while, then crossed it. There were no other trail splits. Whoever made them had come very close to us, close enough that I should have noticed, unless I'd simply missed the sound of footsteps. As the light began to fade, Rex stopped dead. He turned, hackles raised, and started barking viciously, a sound I'd rarely heard from him. I turned around, my heart pounding, and almost collided with a man standing less than 3 feet behind me. He was tall, dressed in dark snow pants and a white camouflage jacket that blended eerily well with the snow. His hands were buried in his pockets. His face was partially shadowed by a hood. His mouth was moving. He was talking, but I couldn't hear a word, and the dim light made it impossible to read his lips clearly. Panic surged through me. I shook my head and gestured to my ears, trying to indicate I couldn't hear. I pointed back toward the trail and then at my watch, hoping he'd understand that it was late and I was leaving. He just stood there, staring. Rex lunged, straining against the leash, snarling. That finally seemed to snap the man out of whatever trance he was in. He took a slow step back. I didn't wait to see what he'd do next. I turned and hurried home, heart racing, Rex practically dragging me the rest of the way. I checked the locks 3 times that night. I told myself the man was probably just homeless, maybe living in the woods, maybe harmless. Still, I barely slept. Around 3 a.m., Rex exploded into barking, loud enough that even I couldn't miss it. He raced down the stairs, growling in a way that made my blood run cold. My phone buzzed with a text from a neighbor asking if everything was okay. They'd heard something or seen lights. When I went downstairs, Rex was planted in front of the patio door, teeth bared, body rigid. I followed his gaze just as the motion light outside flicked on. Standing in my backyard was the same man, same jacket, same height. He was close to the house, too close, staring straight at the glass. I didn't hesitate. I locked myself in the upstairs bedroom with Rex and grabbed the machete I kept for emergencies. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I texted 911, explaining as best I could what was happening and that I was hard of hearing. From upstairs, the house felt terrifyingly quiet. I watched the bottom of the bedroom door, convinced I saw shadows moving, imagining the sound of footsteps I couldn't hear. Every creak of the house sent a jolt of fear through me. Rex stood guard, low and growling, eyes fixed on the door. I was certain the man was trying to get inside, certain that at any moment the door would burst open. When the police finally arrived, it was over. The man was gone. The patio glass was shattered, spiderwebbed across the door, and the back gate leading into the forest stood wide open. Officers searched the area but found nothing. No shelter, no footprints, no sign of him. I stayed with a friend for several days afterward, too shaken to be alone. I never heard back from the police with any updates. Officially, nothing came of it. I still live in the same house, but I never walk those forest trails anymore. Sometimes, late at night, when the snow falls and everything goes quiet, I catch myself staring at the tree line, wondering how many times someone could have been near me before, close enough to hear my footsteps, close enough to watch, while I never heard a thing.